G'day, Kiah. Pleasure to be chatting with you, mate. How the hell are you?
I'm okay, man. I'm okay. Any sort of period of time where I get to release a film is a good period of time. So I'm in a pretty good mood. Fucking the reviews are going okay. It screened well at Sydney Film Festival. Screened well at Brisbane. I cannot complain. You know, not a
Awesome.
single
Hey,
bad review.
I want to start by asking you if you've been keeping up with the whole Matt Doran stuff with Adele.
No, I read a headline. Tell me what's going on with that.
Oh well, he flew all the way to London to interview her, and then revealed that he hadn't listened to her album, and so he lost Channel 7 $1 million contract with the studio. But I wanted to preface this conversation by saying that I haven't seen Wormwood Apocalypse yet.
That's
And
all right. Have you seen number one?
Oh hell yeah, absolutely.
It's just the continuation thereof. You know, if you've seen Evil Dead 1, you've seen Evil Dead 2, kind of, you know. I'm not Adele. I don't give a fuck, Glenn. I'm just happy to talk to you.
I owned a video store for several years and had a Wormwood poster behind my counter for at least 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dude,
absolutely.
That's fine. That's fine. And like, I'm sure you'll like the sequel. Like, if you're a Wormwood fan, yeah, it's sort of bigger. It's got big clanging balls that the other one didn't have. It's not quite as funny, but it makes up for it. Okay, do you know what it is? It's Mad Max 1 and Mad Max 2. Mad Max 1 is kind of creakier, but kind of more fun, and it sets up the whole world. Mad Max 2 is just like fucking pedal to the metal. It just does not fuck around from like frame. It's basically one long truck chase, you know, and that's awesome. It's kind of similar with our thing, you know. So I'm sure you'll love it once you see it.
Well, you've kind of covered already a couple of my questions, which is awesome. But like, I was gonna go in by saying, well, you know, why the fuck should I see this movie? But you've answered that question by comparing it to sort of the Mad Max films. I'm on board. I remember the first movie being compared with sort of a Mad Max crossed with Dawn of the Dead. I think that was even on the DVD.
Yes.
Yeah, is that a good way to describe this one too?
Yes. So the first one is like Mad Max 1 crossed with Dawn of the Dead. And to be clear, it's the Ramiro Dawn of the Dead. You know, the Snyder Dawn of the Dead is like a $45 million film. It's a different beast. But I really wanted, when I made Wormwood, I didn't mind that it was a bit gritty and a little bit of a throwback to, you know, the old kind of 70s, you know, exploitation films. I really wanted it to feel like, you know, Evil Dead 2 with slightly better lighting. And actually, Evil Dead 2 was pretty well lit, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But this one's just a bit more pro. So this would be Mad Max 2 crossed with Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, awesome.
With a cyborg zombie thrown in just for good measure.
I remember shortly after the first movie came out, there was buzz or talk about a sequel even back then. And I think you even had maybe a TV series in mind at one point. Like, when did the sequel come to you? Was it before the first one even happened? Did you have this universe in mind, or, you know, where did the origins of this come from?
It always wanted to be like a riffable franchise where we could just sort of riff endlessly for as long as people will continue to allow us to make these movies. Like, you know, world building is a bit of a cliche, but that's exactly what we wanted to do, because I grew up watching Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I love the world of Evil Dead. I love the world that, you know, George Miller set up with Apocalypse. And quite frankly, we just got the shits with waiting for him to make another film. So we thought, oh, well, let's just shoot one in our backyard, and Wormwood happened. So we always wanted a sequel. Ironically, the opening scene in Wormwood Apocalypse that you will see, like it's the post-title scene. So the title comes up and then we open with sort of this man alone in a electrified sort of enclosure with a fence around it and all these zombies trying to get in. And he's got a zombie attached to his barbecue that like runs his barbecue. He's got like a zombie tied up to a stake that he uses for boxing practice. So the zombies boxing him. It's got like a bird cage around its head so it doesn't bite him, and he just beats the shit out of it every day. That's how he exercises. Nice. So that scene was written 12 years ago. That's the first thing we wrote for Wormwood. So originally, I don't know if you've seen the 7-minute proof of concept that we did for Wormwood, I think in 2010 now. So we released like this little 7-minute sort of proof of concept thing just on YouTube. That was originally going to be the opening scene for the film, and we were going to start a year into the apocalypse, like straight into Mad Max world. But then as we kind of developed it and kind of started setting up, you know, Wormwood Road of the Dead, we realized really we should tell the origin story, you know, more like how Mad Max, you know, sets up Max Rockatansky with his family and that, and he moves into the wilderness of the apocalypse. And so that's what we ended up doing. And so now, like 7 years later, we finally got to shoot like the original film that we kind of wanted to make. So it's kind of, it's a really nice way. It's really circular sort of way to get to the film. We did have a TV series planned. After we made the first one, I was kind of like, I just wanted to try television. Like I wanted to make, but like it had to be good. It's like, look, if we can't make Breaking Bad with zombies, like what the fuck's the point? So if we can't make like the greatest ever Australian zombie television series, don't want to do it. And, you know, we wrote the pilot, and we wrote a very detailed pitch Bible that's like that thick. It's like the best document I've ever made. And we just sort of shopped it around. We went over to LA, we talked to a bunch of different companies, and I realized very quickly that the television world is very hard to crack. And B, we weren't going to get a budget that I was confident with to be able to make it the best ever. But I knew that if we made a film, I'd knock it out of the park. And so we just went back to the idea of making a feature. And I'm really glad we did, because, you know, you get to the end of a thing and you kind of know if it kicks ass or not. Like, you know, the public will decide whether they like it and whether it's going to make money, and, you know, the reviewers will decide how good it is. But really, all that stuff doesn't really fucking matter, because I love it. I love the film. I'm just looking at it. I've seen it 150 times now, and I'm like, this is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, you know? And like, if you make a film that you're proud of, that's like you're 80% there, you know? So I'm pretty happy with what we've done, you know?
Awesome. If I can ask a typical sort of journo style question for a moment, what were some like valuable lessons you took away from the first film, or even sort of Necrotronic, and applied to this one, or maybe even avoided?
Always make sure the catering is good. Like we had just some serious mutinies on our hands because we're handing out way too many shitty sausage sandwiches and just giving somebody a handful of chocolate and going, oh, just deal with that for, you know, that's your food for the next 12 hours. And like, that's not good. Catering has to be good. The lesson that I learned from the first one was, I thought the first one was amateur hour. I thought, oh, like we'll just make a bunch of shit with our mates and then we'll be pros. And what I realized having made Necrotronic was, oh no, we got it right the first time. Like really, every film should feel like a bunch of friends getting together. It should feel like amateur hour. It should feel like people are having fun and having a great time, and the film is the priority rather than, you know, the professionalism of it all. You know, like Necrotronic was, you know, a real splash in the face for me because it was my first studio film. And I got about halfway through it just going, how in the name of God does Nolan do it? Like, how does he make like personal visionary films when you've got like literally 7 people helping you make every single creative decision that you make? Because, you know, I think to make something pure, there has to be a singular vision. There just has to be. And the more money, the less singular the vision. And so what I'm trying to do now, moving forward from Wormwood Apocalypse, is to try and find a happy medium. With Wormwood Apocalypse, like we went back to kind of crazy days of, you know, like low budget filmmaking. Except, you know, this time we knew a hell of a lot more. We had more money so that it was, you know, properly pro. We had Blake Northfield, who's made 4 films, and he came in and just made sure everything was schmick and that the catering was good. That was important. But I'd love to be able to step it up and make something with a sort of similar budget to Necrotronic, but also make it with that DIY film school approach. And try to have that singular vision again. I don't know what the secret is, but it's got to be out there, because I see these amazing filmmakers like, like Paul Thomas Anderson and Scorsese and stuff. They've worked it out. I don't know what the secret is, but there's got to be a way to have a singular vision and to have a little bit more money. That'd be fun, you know.
The first film just sort of blew up internationally, and did that catch you off guard? And I'm wondering if the weight of expectation from horror fans all around the world affected you creatively. Like, you know, did you have a wider audience in mind when you're making the movie, or did you just play it to the Aussie attributes?
You always hope that you're going to make like a classic. And, you know, like in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be the Australian Scorsese. And, you know, very quickly in the business, you realize, no, I'm going to be Kiah Roache-Turner, whatever that means. You know, Scorsese's already got that wrapped up. Like, honestly, like we would have been happy to just release Wormwood 1 on YouTube and just go about our business, you know, but it sold to a distributor and it did well. And we got, you know, #1 on iTunes for a while. And, you know, we got really decent reviews from like the Hollywood Reporter and Variety and like Time Magazine and stuff. So that means we won the low budget lottery. Like, I think we just had a good idea and it was well rendered. And, you know, yeah, the weight of expectation is difficult, but I've really learned that, you know, I mean, the only expectation you have to meet is your own. You know, as long as you like your film, chances are there'll be a pocket of people who like it too. It just really depends on how big that pocket is, you know?
Yeah. Do those people immediately sort of come up to you asking you about a third chapter after they've seen the second one?
Yeah. Heaps of people are like, so when's 3 coming out? And that's the funny thing of the film. You spend like 2.5 years or like 4 years writing it, 2.5 years making it. You break your butt. And the first question is, when's the next one? You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, Jesus, give me a break. Like, let the wounds heal from the last one, man.
But it means you're doing something right.
It must. But to be honest with you, I'm rearing to go, man. I'd love to make Wormwood 3. You know, I've already started jotting down ideas. I could write this script like pretty quick. Yeah, I'd love to keep doing it. You know, like I said, as long as they keep letting me do it, I'll do it. You know.
I'll be there. I'll be there for sure. Like, you know, front row center for sure.
I think you're going to like this one, man. It's a classic. It's a real classic genre meat grinder of a film. And it's, you know, there's not too many Aussie Evil Deads, you know, and I think this one's pretty good. I think anybody who loves genre will just look at this and go, okay, yeah, well done. You know, the whole third act is just balls to the wall. I'm really happy with it. You know, it's just got constant action, and it's not just action for the sake of it. Like, there really is quite, you know, it's got peaks and valleys. It's got, you know, it's sort of constantly inventive, and it's low budget as fuck. Like, it's not, you know, you couldn't put it up there with like, you know, Avengers Endgame. But the whole point of this is to have the opposite of Avengers Endgame as an option for an audience. You know, people who are sick of seeing the world explode can just watch a little Australian zombie's head explode, you know? Yeah.
well, I mean, I don't sell yourself short, because I think even just the first film alone was like of international standard. Like, the quality was exceptional for a low budget film. So I'm really psyched for this one, that's for sure.
Such a nice thing to hear. It's so funny too, because we just shot it on like 5Ds and stuff. Like, literally, like a big chunk of that was shot in my mum's backyard. Like, it still blows my mind that people are like, yeah, it's of a standard that's pretty like
a couple of years ago, I was presenting some online content for Scarefest in Kentucky, and I was in promoting Aussie horror films to them, and Wormwood is the one that stuck with them. Wormwood and Cargo are the two that they just said, these are some of the best horror that we've ever seen. So, you know, it resonates.
Cargo is like, it's a beautiful film, and it's got like the emotional impact of it is just gorgeous. And they're kind of opposites. It'd actually be a really good double bill, Cargo and Wormwood. Wormwood's like, you know, this kind of splatterfest. Yeah. And it's weird though, we have a legitimate following in Texas.
Yeah.
And they're always writing in saying how they love it and how shit the guns look. They're just like, God damn, you make a hell of a zombie film, but you can't make a gun for shit, man. Those guns are fake as fuck. And they are, you know, because we just carved them out of wood.
Yeah.
It's bad taste time, man. We literally carved them out of wood and painted them black, you know.
Oh man, our time is fleeting. I want you to indulge me just for a moment. We're the same age, and we grew up in an incredible moment of, you know, movies and video stores. What were the kind of movies you were renting from a video store at a young age?
I used to go to, what was it called? There was Video Shift in Balmain, which I adored because they're just a hell of a video store. But there was a little video store on Broadway, and I can't remember the name of it. It's not Video Manor, it's something else. But it was run by a guy who looked exactly like, who's the director? Alan Parker. He just looked like Alan Parker, like a grumpy Alan Parker. And I'd go down there looking for just crazy shit. Like I'd go down, obviously looking for the Evil Deads and, you know, like all of that kind of stuff and trying to find some earlier Dario Argento. But I'd go down and ask if he had Malinoche, the early black and white Gus Van Sant, like this little 16-year-old film nerd. And like, that's when he noticed me. He looked up and like raised an eyebrow. He's like, Malinoche, how do you know about that? I'm like, I read shit, man. So I was just always looking for, you know, like anything, you know, Fellini, whatever. The thing that I loved about video stores more than anything though, is you'd go to like Blockbuster and stuff and, you know, you had Goodfellas and Taxi Driver and whatnot, but you had to go and search for Mean Streets. You know, like you couldn't find like early Scorsese, like who's that knocking at my door, like all that kind of stuff. Like that was the fun stuff, having to actually hunt shit down. Like no video store had New York, New York. Like you had to go to Video Shift for that. And they had the sections in, you know, you go through director by director. And, you know, it's like, it was actually kind of hard to find Last Temptation of Christ and all that kind of stuff. Like, but, you know, you'd hear about this film called Deep Red and you'd go rent that, like you'd get a friend's mum to rent it for you, you know, like, yeah, all that stuff was great. I'm getting excited just talking about it, man. I spent like literally thousands of hours in video stores, you know.
Yeah.
You'd spend a half day, you know, just getting your 10. And even the video store person would just be looking at you going, do you not have a home to go? You've been here for 7 hours. Like,
you would have loved my store, and I had plenty of those customers that just lingered all day. I even, you know, made them comfortable. Want a coffee? Here you go.
Well, there was a point where my local video store just said, look, you have to work here. Like, you're here too often. And so that was one of my first jobs, was a video store clerk, of course, you know. But I didn't even ask for the job. He demanded it. He goes, dude, you have to work here now. Like, it's like, you're here too often. We may as well pay you.
Oh, mate, I feel like we're cut from the same cloth, but I'm legitimately psyched for Apocalypse. I'm really, really eager to see it, and I'm going to hold out for Monster Fest. No screeners or anything like that, and I just, you know, wish you all the best with it. I hope it really, really takes off, you know, and hope there is a number 3.
Thanks, man. And I'm genuinely interested. Like, you've got my email now. Shoot me an email. I mean, if you hate it, don't bother. But like, like, just tell me what you think. Fuck it. Even if you hate it, you know, let me know. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Like, just as a film critic, I'm very interested. You know, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Consider it done, and thank you so much for your time, mate.